Fishing with Livescope. It's everywhere, right? The debate is everywhere. It's kind of how you know it's the off season for bass fishing and bass fishing tournaments, because you didn't have this conversation during the season. Now you've got a lot of anglers, a lot of professional anglers with a lot more time on their hands, like most recreational anglers during the season, when they were commenting on things like just the ridiculousness of Cayuga and what happened in MLF during spawn and during things like that. Well, the pros are focused and myopic on what I'm going to talk about right now, which I think is the key component of the Livescope debate that no one is talking about. Because it really doesn't have anything to do with catching fish. Can we bury that freaking myth that Livescope is about catching fish? I mean, everything is about catching fish, okay? If you're going to spend $80,000 for a bass boat, you're going to spend freaking $50,000, $40,000 on electronics and tackle and thousands of dollars on insurance and, upgrades in your motor, upgrades in everything, right? Of course, the goal is to catch fish. Livescope doesn't catch fish. It doesn't. Okay? Right? I've had this discussion on some of the chats. It's like brakes don't drive a car. Okay? Brakes have nothing to do with a car being driven. Brakes have to do with stopping a car. Has nothing to do with a car being driven. Right? You can drive a car without brakes. Right? You can fish in major tournaments without Livescope. We know that. We've got a long history of tournaments without Livescope, right? Livescope doesn't catch fish. Livescope locates fish to be caught. All the other arguments, okay, are meaningless to me, because it's just people who have Livescope and love it, want to defend it. People who don't have Livescope, have never been on a boat with Livescope, who have no idea what Livescope is really even all about, how it works. There's an interesting conversation is, again, ask people who have Livescope how it works. And you're going to get a million different answers, because they don't really know. They just know that it works. Okay? But they don't know the science of it, just like we don't know the science of everything that our doctor tells us and all these different things. We just accept it for what it does. We plug it in, plug and play, go. It goes. Okay? So all this crap about Livescope, and I've shared a lot of it because it's entertainment. That's why they're posting, okay? One, they don't have tournaments to fish, okay? And it's views and everything else. Everyone has their opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. That's content. But it's professional anglers now having a lot of time on their hands, and now they're going to dive into these things, as opposed to like Randy Blockett, who's been posting about Livescope all year long, okay? Because he has mastered this concept that it really doesn't matter what I think. It matters what's going to get me views, okay? What's going to, and again, people dismiss Randy because Randy's finished outside the top, 80, 100, whatever, consistently. And I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying, so they just kind of dismiss him as he's old school and he doesn't understand the technology. He probably understands the technology better than anybody, okay? Because he talks about it the most and explains it the most to his audience. I'm not defending Randy's position. I just think we've approached Livescope from a totally wrong perspective if you are a non-professional angler, okay? The reality of it is this Livescope debate is about livelihood, okay? It's about a generation of people, my generation, okay? My generation, okay? I'm 53, all right? Just turned 53, believe it or not, who don't want to let go. It's about their livelihood. It's about a 45 to 55 or 60-year-old angler having to relearn fishing for a new age. Okay? That's what this whole thing is about. It's about money. It's about livelihoods. It's about payouts. It's about winnings. It's about all that stuff. Okay? Where are the sponsors going to move to? We know this. Look over history. Unless you're somebody like the GOAT, okay, unless you're somebody who just has that it factor, and we know who a few of them are, Ike and Ellie and people like that have the it factor. Sponsors are staying with them. But a lot of times they don't stay. A lot of times they go to the next generation. They go to the anglers that are winning, that can promote their brand, that are getting the clicks, that are getting the follows and the likes and all of that stuff. It's about livelihood. If you can fish with Livescope and you can put 5 in the boat and win tournaments, you're pro Livescope. If you don't fish with Livescope and you have Livescope in your boat, but you just haven't been able to master that craft, okay, you don't like Livescope, right? How is that different than anything else in our lives, okay? Right? It's like guys with really expensive, fast cars or the top of the line, $100,000 truck right off the line, guy gets it, and the guy driving the F-150 that's 16 years old, okay? It's envy and all that stuff, just like everything else in our world, in our lives, off the fishery, okay? But Livescope doesn't catch fish. Livescope helps anglers to put themselves in a position to catch fish, okay? A bait catches fish. Totally different. So when people make these analogies, like that's why the analogy with the Alabama rig is powerful to a lot of people, and probably to me. I understand that. I understand, a little bit, because the states, this is what a lot of people don't understand about the organizations that govern these events. They're hamstrung a lot of times by state governance. So in Maryland and Virginia have two completely different laws when it comes to the Alabama rig. Okay? A lot of states have completely. Look up Alabama rig state regulations, and you will see some states don't care. You can flow 6. Okay? Some states are 2. Some states are 3. Some states are 1. Whatever it is. Like, all the states are different. So if you're a tournament trail and you're sending anglers all over the country to fish in the Northeast, to fish Midwest, to fish down South, how do you craft a logical rules structure for all your events? Is you come to a happy medium and you say, okay, you can have 5, but you can only have 3 hooks, right? That's the happy medium. And you ask the state or whatever to get like a waiver or a release and say, for the event purposes, can they do this, whatever that. You go to all that stuff that people don't ever see because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they don't know how this shit works, and they don't know how the states and the wildlife and the natural resources and the wildlife resources and all that are all up in all the stuff that goes on, and because it's boring nonsense. And you can't really talk about it in a 30-second freaking video on TikTok, okay? And so people just like, oh, well, why can't they do this? Or, oh, why can't they do that? Well, okay, a lot of times it has to do with the state. So the Alabama rig is apropos, as they say, because it was removed, because it basically was reported that it catches fish too easily, meaning no skill involved. Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm no Livescope diva. Okay. Don't own Livescope, okay? I'm learning Livescope from people who have Livescope that have been generous enough to allow me to come onto their boat, because I just don't know the value proposition of having a Livescope where I fish. But getting a Livescope will actually make me probably fish more reservoirs and lakes in my region where I live. Right now, it's 99 degrees today, boys. 99 degrees where I am. Just like it's hot down south. And the river is approximately 9 to 12 inches deep. Okay? Rocks everywhere. No one's taking their boats out. Don't think Livescope's going to help you. Okay? And that's the reality. But there are some things for Livescope that we should all be able to agree on, okay? I think we want these competitions, at least I do. Look, and I'm a schmuck on YouTube and whatever. I just love fishing, okay? And I know fishing's going to change, and I know there's going to come a time when the livelihood argument, you're just going to get older. You either adapt. I learned this in the military, as most veterans probably understand. You adapt, okay, or die, right? And so you're either going to evolve or you're going to go away. That's life, man. That is every sport. Look at offenses in the NFL. 15 years ago, we were talking about valuing running backs in fantasy football like nobody's freaking business. Now, you can't give away a running back off your fantasy team. Why is that? Because the game has changed. Offenses now are completely different than offenses 15 years ago. They just are. The sport of fishing is different, okay? Livescope is an offensive innovation in locating fish, as opposed to graphs of old. Yes, it's technology, but it's driven by us. It's driven by what we want. What do we want? We want to catch more fish. I don't care who you are. You need to look yourself in the mirror. If someone told you they were going to put you on a boat with Kyle Hall, Brett Cannon, Josh Jones, Jason Kahn, any of those guys in Texas, okay? Or anyone on Team 6 from 6 Cents. And they're going to put you on a boat with Livescope on Ivy, Fork, you name it. I don't care. Amistad, you name it. I don't care. In Texas. And you catch your freaking PB and you catch a double-digit PB of your life, you are going to tell me that you are not automatically going to become a Livescope fan overnight? Be honest with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror, okay? Because that's the reality. Most of the people bitching and moaning about Livescope have never even been in a boat with Livescope. They can't afford. That's another thing. They can't afford. That's the other problem that fishing has right now. And the pros have always been able to skate it my whole life. Okay, and I've said this before on numerous videos. From meeting Rick Clunn and Klein and Woo Daves and all those guys back during the Richmond James River Bassmaster Classics when I was a kid. I was a young buck, okay? You know, a lot of pros have been able to skate these arguments that a lot of times people are going to massive debt. Fishing is about debt, okay, these days. It is. You got a payment on your boat. People now, think about that. 25 years ago, did anybody have a payment on a graph? Did anybody finance a freaking graph? Right? No, you saved your money. You saved your money, you went up, and you went to the store and you bought one. Right? Well, now we've got all Clairol, Shop Pay, freaking whatever, Affirm. We got everyone now. Everybody that I know that has Livescope is paying for it. Every month. Financed it. 16 months, 18 months. That's why they can get 2 or 3. Okay? And that's another issue. Just make it 1 unit in tournaments. I don't care how many units you got on your boat. If you're out freaking at the lake, the reservoir, freaking fishing with your buddies and all that stuff. But if it's a tournament, okay, just make it 1 unit on the front. Make it 1 unit. Oh, we're gonna have to need a backup unit. No, you don't. If you can't take care of your equipment and your equipment goes down, just like when your motor dies or something else happens in your boat, they don't give you another boat. Okay? Like, no. You didn't take care of your equipment. That's part of being a professional angler, professional athlete. If a professional athlete doesn't take care of his body and it breaks down, they don't just automatically give him a new body. He's got to go into freaking physical therapy and fix his body, right? Right? Like, I'm just saying, like, again, take care of your equipment. 1 unit. Okay? Now, the other thing they can do is freaking stop with the televised bullshit with Livescope. That's what the number one complaint is, fans, is it's boring to watch. Because you know what? It's boring to watch. Okay? It just is. You know, and I think there's a correlation between Livescope and what MLF was doing with all the catches, like a certain size minimum, but you basically caught as many fish as you could because Livescope was putting these guys on fish. So, there is something to say about a guy who's scoping, who is trying to get his best 5 off a school of fish rapidly, right? And you see him catching fish like boom, 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 and he's trying to get his best 5 of that. And a lot of times they're all the same size fish. But he's catching fish. But most of the time, it's not that way. Most of the time, it's a guy getting stiff neck, looking down at a screen. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the kids sitting on their chairs, or whatever it is, playing their video game. When you walk in a room, the 8-year-old, his head is just like, right? That's what it reminds me of, because that's what it is. Okay, it is video game-ish on a screen. I saw a gentleman, and again, I am not throwing shade. I say, because I saw a gentleman with the largest freaking screen I've ever seen in my life on a boat on the Tide of Potomac this year. Like, that screen was bigger probably than my first monitor for my freaking computer. Like, back in it. Like, I was blown away at how big that freaking screen was. But he only had one. You know, give fairness, he had one, so he had a good screen. I don't know, maybe watch a game on that thing. I don't know these days. I mean, who knows the technology and streaming? Maybe he was streaming, maybe he had a split screen. I don't know, I have no idea, okay? But I saw that and I was just like, man, damn. Again, if you can afford that technology or you're willing to go into debt for it to get that, and you can be approved, okay? Who's not going to do that? Most guys are going to do that. If you talk to them honestly, okay? Because it does help you locate fish. You can't catch fish if you can't locate them. None of that other equipment on your boat, okay, is helping you locate fish. Other than your brain, your experience, your knowledge, your intuition, which is a skill that's going away, okay, with my generation. Not to say that some of these young bucks can't catch fish the old way, but I don't see a lot of them throwing the freaking worm like Woo Daves in the James River back in the 80s anymore. Most guys are power fishing, right? Unless you're drop shotting or you're doing whatever, finesse fishing, because you're fishing for smallies and all that stuff during certain times of the year. Okay, I get that. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate about that, but most of these guys are freaking power fishermen, okay? And again, you know, it's a debtor's game, right? But it's about livelihood. Guys feel threatened. Randy Blockett, while I believe he's probably sincere about some of the conservation aspects, because there are a lot of conservation aspects about Livescope, okay? There are. Let's just get to it. Let's be honest. If you're catching a bass, smallmouth, because that's pretty predominantly what I fish for. If you catch a smallmouth in 42 feet of water, okay, anywhere I know, okay, and I'm assuming it's like Cayuga, okay, Seneca, all right, Oneida, okay, like places like that. I'm sure it's like down in Erie and like Ontario and probably the St. Lawrence River where it's really deep and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, you catch a smallmouth bass in 42 feet of water and you pull that thing up, you have to take extra care of that fish. Most people don't. I've seen it. Most people don't care, okay? It's just a fish. It's just a fish. You know, you got pros. Fish got little bitty brains, right? It's just a fish. A lot of kids aren't raised to respect the fish, to respect the river, to respect the wildlife. They're not. You know that to be true. So don't look at me like I'm crazy. We know that we're not, as parents, it's about winning. It's about setting my kid up with the right boat, the right equipment, the right rod company, the right Livescope or electronics, the right everything, so he can win. He's got to win. Johnny got to win, okay? It's fishing. The same mentality was been in football and AAU basketball, if you're my age, okay, that we've seen for the last 40 years, all right, has come to fishing. It's called high school fishing. If you've ever been to a high school event, you think those parents are any different than the parents at football games? Okay? The only difference is they don't get to sit in a stadium around to watch all the high schoolers fish. They're spread out all over a fishery. But don't sell yourself short, okay? Those people will buy their way and attempt to buy their way for their son or daughter, okay, in fairness, a win. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. Is it wrong to send your kid to the best, most expensive football camp, basketball camp, soccer camp, baseball camp? Is it wrong or right? Everybody wants an advantage. Everybody. Livescope provides, currently Livescope, as it is today, out of the box, is the number one advantage in terms of technology that is going to put you on fish and locate fish. Don't matter who you are, but you got to put your time in. It's not a plug and play go. It's not plug and catch. Okay? You got to put your time in and learn it. So you got to give these guys, I give these young bucks respect. Okay, because I've seen a lot of them on Bass Nation coming up, Bass Opens in the region. Seen a lot of these young guys, 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, that are going to be up on that stage in probably 5 years. They're doing the work. A few of them have already made up there. You saw Brenny Hallman's freaking video. Check it out about how it's getting younger. The elites are getting younger. Bass Pro Tour, Toyota, they're getting younger. Okay, because the advancements are speeding up that process of knowledge and experience. And a lot of people have a problem with that. And the people that really have a problem with that are the people who make their livelihood out of fishing. Okay? For me, I'd be like, go NASCAR, right? I mean, if you want to make the argument, relate to people. What's the predominant demographic of people that bass fish? It's pretty much in the South. That's where all like the kayak fishing events are predominantly. That's where most of your tote bass events go, is in the South. You know what I mean? Bassmaster Classics in the South for the most part. Okay, that's the demographic, right? Most of those people also follow and probably have been to or go to NASCAR events. Well, what's the difference between NASCAR and fishing? Well, NASCAR anglers and drivers. Okay? You want it where a driver gets beat by another driver. A driver doesn't get beat by another car. Meaning it doesn't matter what brand car it is, okay? Or model of that brand. The cars are set up pretty much the same because of the rules. Everything is set up the same, okay? And then sir, crew chiefs skirt that shit just like professional anglers cheat. Cayuga, okay? A lot more than Spencer, by the way. And they know it. And they got away with it. So the lesson that was sent to them was, just don't get caught. Just same as way when you're in the classroom. Cheat, but just don't get caught. Don't get caught, Johnny. You're only speeding down the highway if the blue lights or red lights are on behind you. Okay, if you don't get a ticket, then you're really not speeding, even though you're going 35, 40 miles an hour over the speed limit. You're still speeding, okay? Whether or not you get caught, or whether or not you get fined, or whether or not you get DQ'd, if you cheated, you still cheated, okay? And you know it. You just don't care because you don't respect the sport. And there are a lot of people. There are a lot of recreational anglers out there, and there are a lot of people that tried to get where you are, okay? Didn't make it. That love the sport of fishing. And for professional anglers to seemingly have the attitude where they don't really care, they just didn't get caught, it pisses a lot of people off. It pisses a lot more people off than this bullshit Livescope debate. I can tell you that right now, okay? Because there are a lot of people who would love to be in that boat, love to be on Cayuga, love to be using Livescope on Bass Elite Series or Bass Pro Tour, okay? They would love to be where those people are. And so when those people demonstrate a contempt, really, and respect for the sport that they are a part of, that ain't good, okay? And you saw a lot of that, all right? But in terms of the NASCAR argument, I'm like, look, man, put one unit in the boat, it's the same exact unit. Hey, Garmin. Hey, Lowrance. Hey, the next electronics company that comes along. How many battery companies do we have now? How many lithium battery companies did we have 15 years ago? How many do we have now? Maybe another electronics company comes along that's just Livescope, that's just sonar, side imaging, whatever, okay? Where do you think all that technology is coming from, mate? I had a guy tell me 2 weeks ago he is a retired from the Naval Weapons War Station, okay? And he was laughing. He was laughing in the conversation. He was like, do you have no idea the technology that's out there that once it becomes available to be used in the recreational consumer market, that the technology that's being employed by the military right now, think submarines, okay, right? Where do you think all this technology comes from, right? Like eventually it trickles down, right? So you want it to be angler against angler. You don't want another angler's advantage, okay, right? And people say, oh, well, Jay, well, they're not all throwing the same rods and throwing the same baits. Yeah, And the NASCAR drivers aren't all running the same tires either. Okay? They're not. All right? So let's think about that open. Let's make it so it's, okay, Lawrence, Garmin, you put your top of the line unit in every single Bass Elite Angler's boat. And let them have at it. Then there's no excuse anymore. Use it or don't use it. It's there if you want to use it, not there. If it's a tool, if it's just a tool, it's there for you to use it or not use it. If it's not your poison. We don't say this shit about other techniques and practices, right? We don't say the crankbait guy doesn't get on the worm guy, right? The frog guy doesn't get on, you know what I'm saying? The jerkbait guy. It's like, what's your poison? What's your strength at? What's your confidence bait, right? Like we hear that a lot. What does that mean? It means a guy, that's his go-to, right? My go-to is not your go-to. Is that unfair? No, it's not unfair. My tires on my freaking car are not the same tires as yours. Is that fair or unfair? No, no, right? Again, you can put whatever tires you want on it. You can throw whatever baits or rods in the boat. That's not what should be regulated or limited. But let's level the playing field then to make these people happy. And let's take the TVs, let's take the cameras on these Livescope events, like more drone-ish, not like right on the boat where that's all you're seeing is someone's ass sticking back at you. Okay? That's the number one problem that people have. It's, but at the end of the day, no one's talking about the truth. And the truth is it's about livelihood. Okay? I'm sure Randy has seen his placing in events drop precipitously since Livescope. Okay? It's about livelihood. Certainly not about the fish. Okay? You know that. I think Brian Latimer said it best. He said it's about it's amazing how the rules that we like or don't like are all about personal agendas. He just summed up fishing in the modern era. He just summed up fishing. Okay? And that's what people need to face that reality. That the debate is all these things are excuses. It's just a tool, or it's this, it's that, it's whatever. No, the real argument is livelihood and passing the baton, mates. My generation needs to step, and they know who they are. If you're an angler, 45 to 60, and it could be, I think there's someone over 60 in there, but I mean, whatever, 45 and up, 50 and up, my generation, okay? If you're not willing to learn Livescope, pass the baton to someone else, because every sport evolves, just like I mentioned about the NFL. Every sport evolves. And if you're not willing to be part of that evolution, it's time for you to retire and get out of the sport. It is. Because you're not going to, you're just going to be a whiner. You're going to be a Randy Blockett, okay? Who's not winning events anymore, not finishing the top, not making the cut anymore, and blaming young bucks. Blaming Livescope as the reason why. Okay? When fact of the matter is, you just didn't catch as many big fish as them. For whatever reason. You opted to use a different technique, a different technology, whatever. Okay? So it's about livelihood. I mean, it just is. Okay? And the older guys, just like old people. You got a grandpa, you got a grandpa. Grandpas don't change. Grandpas are always like that. Older generations are always like, back in my day, right? We understand that. Well, back in our day, there wasn't Livescope. That technology was not as prolific as it is today. And certainly even when there were top grabs in the 80s, okay, not the average guy did not have that top graph, okay? Today, there are 16-year-old lads, okay, rolling out of Smallwood in Leesylvania on the tidal Potomac with not one, but 2 Livescopes on their boat. And daddy ain't nowhere around, okay? It's their truck and it's their boat, okay? It's theirs. It's got their name on it. It's everything. Dad's at work, okay? Mom's probably at work, but God bless him. He's out getting it done. He's fishing. And he understands at 16 that to be competitive in the next decade, he has to put into work and understand Livescope. Because if he doesn't, he's not going to make it. He's not going to get to where he wants to be. Okay? And all that is about the future. And for these guys in it today, it's about their livelihoods being threatened. It's the Moneyball argument. Okay? It is. They're worried about their paycheck and their payouts. All right? Because they want to stay in the game. And they want to stay in the game as long as they can. That's what this Livescope debate is about. And they're going to have to retool, rethink this offseason, and put the work in the offseason. Not go hunting. Okay? They're going to have to freaking learn Livescope unless it gets banned or limited. Or they're not going to be able to compete. That's just my take on the Livescope debate, mates.